Well, Pat, thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. The criticism of this character, cartoon character Daniel Boone. Apparently, some writer in the New York Times named Charles Blow considered Speedy Gonzales, considered the character to be a corrosive stereotype that hurts the self-esteem of young people. What's your reaction to that line of thinking?
Well, of course, you have to consider the source of it, and he is the original blowhard that is spouting idiocy. I tell you, there is a serious shortage here in America of intelligence. We are being dumbed down to a degree, I think, unknown, unprecedented, and I think it began around November 3rd of last year, when the Wizard of Oz settled into the Oval Office, whose main word is and he is our leader. And since then, the dictates, the executive orders that are taking place here are absolutely wrecking the country, and so many of our citizens are willing to go along with it. I mean, they're afraid to take exception or to actually say, wait a minute, the emperor hasn't no clothes on, Mama. There's no clothes on. I mean, when are we going to start just making up our own minds? This guy, Speedy Gonzales, is a cartoon character that was famous in Mexico long before Warner Brothers began to, or was it, Looney Tunes began to make him a cartoon character. But he was the Mexican Mickey Mouse, and he was a cartoon character. And, when I recorded the song, Larry, it became an instant hit. It went to #1 faster than any other record I'd ever made. In like 6 weeks, it was #1. And, of course, it was about a Speedy character named Speedy Gonzales. Guess who calls this his favorite song? The Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu.
Interesting.
Every time we're together, he says, "Hello, Speedy, come on in." Because he loved that song when he was at MIT in college, and he liked Elvis, and he liked me, and he particularly liked my song Speedy Gonzales, which, by the way, is extremely popular in Israel still even now. And so all of a sudden, the little mousy character, like this guy named Blow, is might be considered, just because it's been mentioned. Somebody suggested it, but nobody bothers to say, wait a minute, that's ridiculous. No. Oh, well, I guess he must be abrasive, or it must be what's the word I'm looking for? Insulting to the Mexicans. Whenever I sing it, Larry, and for all the years that it's been a hit record of mine, and I do it in every show I ever do, the folks who applaud the loudest right away are the Hispanics. They love Speedy Gonzales, because he's a beloved character. And, of course, he happens to be fictional.
My guest
happens to be a cartoon.
My guest is recording star Pat Boone. Pat, you said that this happened, in your opinion, on November the 3rd. I would say that it accelerated on November the 3rd. But remember, there was an attack on Confederate monument. If anybody suggested that this was about Southern pride or about history, you're a racist. If you're white, you're an Uncle Tom. If you're black, we've canceled Uncle Ben. We've canceled Aunt Jemima. And this took place before November the 3rd.
Oh yeah, it was growing. It was growing like a subcutaneous cancer. It was under the surface. It was coming. It was coming. All of a sudden, it burst into a full boil on about November 3rd. But you know what's making me not just mad, but very sad at heart for America? One of the great things about the Bible, as you know, is that the Bible tells the story of the human race, warts and all.
Right.
And there's not one character in the Bible who didn't make serious mistakes. There's only one, the Son of God. But you go back to Adam, he only did one thing we know of that was wrong, but it doomed the whole human race. And then Moses was a killer, a murderer, and Abraham also lied about his wife being his sister, and on and on. David was an adulterer and a murderer, and the apostles, even Peter, denied Christ with an oath, and the apostle Paul put Christians in prison. And, I mean, the Bible lets us know that human beings are flawed, and we need to know their flaws, and then we need to be inspired by the ways they were transformed and changed and became something better. When we start taking down the statues of Abraham Lincoln and George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, just because they did, obviously, make mistakes, it happened that they also were human beings, and they made some mistakes, and they did things that were okay in the culture of their time, but they grew beyond those things, and they became tremendous leaders.
Right.
I think you could probably investigate Martin Luther King, as Herbert Hoover did, and maybe find out some flaws in his behavior at one time or another, because we're human beings. We make mistakes, and we need to know it. But to try to change history and erase everything that we ever did that was wrong as if we never did anything wrong, or with this school educational thing, 1619, that we began as a slave nation. It was only because we had slaves that we could even become a nation.
We're going to have to leave it there, Pat. So the point is, who among us could not be canceled at some point? Pat Boone, thank you very much for coming on.
The Bible says none is without sin.
Thanks for coming on, Pat Boone. God bless.
Thank you, man.